My watch list real quick. I have a top 4 as of right now, and I think I'm gonna leave it as that just because I love the setups tomorrow specifically. First and foremost, I'm gonna start with IWM. I want to kind of show you what I'm thinking with IWM. So, if you were in the Discord, we caught IWM today for this gap fill. We ended up catching this 100% play for gap fill. But I do see my setup once again in terms of inside, right? I have a 4-hour inside. I would love puts below 220.01 and possibly target this gap below, right? So I'm gonna kind of want to put a TP at least right here. Put it blue or something right there, right? So I want to take puts below 220.01, target this gap at 218 and possibly gap fill from there, which would be 217. I would love calls above 223.08. That's the 4-hour inside high. I take the breakout and target this daily inside high, right? So that way, if by the time you do hit the daily inside high, you should be up a good amount. And if it does break, then you could be in runners and possibly catch this break of structure, right? But in terms of IWM, it's kind of in this pattern as well. Let me just show you guys. As you see, it's still in this kind of uptrend, right? So we do have a couple gaps below down here to possibly even come fill and bounce from. But as of right now, I do love puts below this, right? So I'm kind of looking at something like taking the breakout and then possibly shorting at least down to this gap right here. But if it does go for calls, right, keep in mind we do have this kind of trend line on the bigger time frame. So if it does break, I'd look for something like this. Take the breakout, let's get in the retest, and then possibly target like up here. So it's kind of what I'm looking at for IWM in terms of entries. But yeah, it's in a double inside. Still currently in this daily inside right here. And it's in a 4-hour inside, right? So we'll see what happens with IWM. Like I said, we're allowed to stay unbiased just because we have entry to either direction, right? So Nvidia, this one was kind of just ranging all day. As you see, if you guys are in the Discord, that was our first play, and we took negative 20% L, and yeah. Now in terms of Nvidia, I feel like it's just ranging to make a nice move to the downside. So it is still below my orange zone, kind of resistance zone, right? So for me to be bullish on Nvidia, it has to be at least above 120, right? Because that's break of structure on the 4-hour, right? But as long as it stays below my orange zone, I am bearish. As you can see, we still have we're still below it. So in terms of that, I am still kind of bearish. And it does have my entry. I'd love puts below 114.88, calls above 116.97, right? And possibly target these TPs above, right? But it is in a weekly inside as well. I just want you guys to see. So you see how it's still in this weekly inside. It aligns with my break of structure to the upside. And yeah, it aligns with my level down here, which would be 103, right? So kind of keep an eye on Nvidia. I'm loving it overall, but as long as it stays below my orange zone, I am absolutely bearish as of right now. It would have to get above my orange zone and possibly do something like this, right? Because above 120, I definitely see these TPs above, right? So keep that in mind, guys. Like I said, PA was just trash today in terms of Nvidia today. So AMD. Now AMD, I know for a fact, even before market closed, I know for a fact it was going to turn into a daily inside, guys. So I just want to let you guys know one thing. When you ever see a stock have an inside and it kind of just ranges and never breaks out that inside is most likely going to turn from a 4-hour inside to a daily inside, right? So that's what happened here on AMD. As you see, is still kind of holding up this uptrend. So I'm still pretty much bullish on it. And I definitely do think AMD could come and touch this gap above, right? That's what I'm kind of thinking with calls. I'd love calls above 157.26. Is you see that the 4-hour and the daily inside high are kind of so close to each other, right? So I'm just gonna take the 4-hour inside breakout. And yeah, just probably target 159 and then daily break of structure, which is also resistance on a bigger time frame, right? So let me just show you. This is my resistance line right here, kind of like my zone, right? So keep that in mind. I'd love to long it to that resistance just in case it does reject, right? We should already be paid by there. So I do have support down here. So if it does break that trend line, I definitely do see AMD probably coming to hit this support down here, right? So keep that in mind. I have puts below 155.07, and I honestly will probably just catch shorts to at least this 1-hour gap. But yeah, AMD's in between two gaps. It has to go to one of them, right? And eventually fill one of them, right? So the downside one is a $2 gap, meaning it's a weak gap. The upside one is about a $4 gap, right? So what I'm thinking is we could long it. Let's say we invalidate this big resistance area, right? We know that resistance, once it gets invalidated, it turns into support. I'd love to long it up to here. Just in case, like I said, this is a respectable gap and it hasn't been tested at all, right? Meaning it's fresh. So I'm expecting kind of like a rejection from here. We could kind of play the gaps right here, catch shorts, and probably short it to support, right? That was once resistance, right? And then it kind of could do something like this, right? But that's just what I'm thinking with AMD to the upside. Like I said, to the downside, I love to short it to this gap. The daily inside low would probably be my first TP, honestly, just in case it does bounce. Because sometimes they do bounce, right? Even though it's a weak gap, sometimes the stocks do bounce from it. So yeah, like I said, if I take shorts, my target would probably be daily inside low, and then if it does break the daily inside low, good. We could catch gap fill to 150, and then we could possibly, get that 4-hour break of structure at 148. Once it breaks 148, this is where that support area starts to get a little bit more serious, right? You could kind of imagine it actually going there, right? But yeah, that's what I have on AMD. Next is QQQ. So Q's is kind of like the same as AMD. It's trading in between two gaps, right? The only difference is this gap is well respected. It hasn't been tested at all. So what I'm thinking in terms of calls, I'd love to take it above 480, 418 and probably long it at least to this gap at 488, right? Just in case, like I said, it hasn't been tested at least not even once, meaning it's fresh. So I'm anticipating a rejection from there, right? So yeah, I would love to long it to gap. But if we do get puts below 480, 165, I'd love to take them and then possibly gap fill. Right now, you do see here on this gap, right? For you, maybe you're like, oh shit, I seen it bounce, like it kind of wicked and then it bounced. If you don't want to do that, if you don't want to take the entry from right here, just wait for it to break the low that it created in the gap, right? So below 478, 475 looks very promising. So that's just something to keep in mind with Qs as well. That's literally what I see in the market today. And yeah, guys, if you guys have any questions, comments, and concerns, just comment it down below. And yeah, guys, hopefully we could catch some good moves and we could get this done.